Welcome to the virtual model of education in Frederick County Public School. We have received a lot of questions about the recording of lessons as a way to help our families navigate this virtual model. And so the purpose of this video today is to attempt to answer many of those questions that you have had for us. And I am joined by Dr. Kevin Cuppet, who is our Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction and Innovation. And Kevin, I want to thank you and your team for all of the work you have been doing in training our teachers in preparation for the virtual model, creating resources to support them, and helping to address these kinds of questions with our community.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
So let me start by asking you, why would we want to record Google Meet sessions or direct instruction for our students and our families?
Well, I think it's important that although we've been planning for the last 4 or 5 months for this fall, we're still operating in the middle of a pandemic. And we heard after the continuity of learning period from many families that having recordings of the instruction that their child may or may not have been able to attend would have been helpful. One, they can go back and revisit what the teacher's asking students to do. I mean, how many times as a parent have you been looking at, at homework time at the kitchen table and a student says, well, I don't remember what the teacher said. And so we'll have an opportunity to do that. We know, and we've heard from a number of families that they may not be able to get their child or their student into every live synchronous session based on maybe their childcare situation. It might be that the parents have to focus on things at work, and so they aren't there to help their younger student. There's a lot of complexities that are out there in families' day-to-day lives, and so having this available will be a huge help for families who can't get their kids there every minute, every time.
And we have talked a lot about these virtual models do require that partnership between home and school, and we feel this is a way to strengthen that support for families or caregivers as we use this virtual model. Now, when we talk about direct instruction, I know when I walk into classrooms, that can look very different depending on the type of lesson, the grade level, and what the teacher has chosen, the creativity of the teacher. So when we talk about recording instruction, there are several ways that teachers could approach that, right?
Absolutely. It's going to come down to what's the instructional purpose. So what is the teacher trying to accomplish? So there are a couple methods that the recording could occur in. So the first one, which is very obvious, would be that maybe the teacher is starting with some very direct instruction, modeling a mathematical process or strategy, giving an explanation of the water cycle, going through how to make an appropriate throwing stance. For all of our different content areas, teachers are going to have some direct instruction that they would show. It might make sense for them to record maybe the first 20 or even 30 minutes, however long that period of time is. And all of the students would be cameras off and microphone off. And so that would really become a very teacher-centered video. So that's the preferred method. If we can keep kids out of the recordings as much as possible, we're certainly going to do that. But unfortunately, instruction doesn't always work that way. So the example that I've been using to explain to folks when we might actually have to record student interactions would be, say, a high school social studies teacher who is teaching students about the art of the debate and dialogue around an issue. And so groups of students may have had to research a particular topic, and they're going to engage in a debate on one side of that issue, say for nuclear power, and another group is going to go against nuclear power. And so if the teacher feels that there are follow-up instructional activities that students must be able to view the debate to do those activities, say critique the positions of their peers, then that debate would have to be recorded. Now, what the teacher would certainly do would be get only the students who have permission to be recorded would be in the recording. They may have a separate debate that same time in that same Google Meet session with a different group of students who don't have permission. And so that teacher judgment around that's going to be very important. Obviously, only the recording with the students who had permission would be shared with students who could not be there for the debate, but would need the debate to be able to do their follow-up work. So it's all going to come down to that purpose. The other thing that teachers have available to them are not even recordings of Google Meets, but rather recordings of direct instruction that they do separate and apart from the students. So in preparation for a lesson, I could see a teacher doing a screencast or maybe a Pear Deck, which are other technology tools that walk students through direct instruction. In fact, it might make more sense to send that to kids before they come to the Google Meet, possibly the day before, go through this information on this instructional topic. And then the Google Meet session itself is really about finding out where students were having difficulty with that content, where were the points of misunderstanding. Might be a group discussion in small groups based on some information that the teacher has that these groups need different things. Those sessions right there may not be recorded at all because that's not appropriate for the instructional purpose. It might very well be that kids that were absent during that Google Meet would then be meeting with the teacher at a time when they could to go over their misunderstandings of the content that was delivered through that digital tool like a Pear Deck or a screencast.
And so again, there's going to be teacher choice, as long as it aligns with the purpose for the instruction. And as that last example you gave, a screencast, there would be another opportunity for a child to get their questions answered. But again, that's going to have to be worked out between the student and the teacher individually in order to make that happen. And someone said, well, we had some of those screencasts in the spring and that wasn't as helpful, but now we have the power of the Google Meet that could occur afterwards, that direct conversation with teachers that before was only happening via email. So there will be many reasons and many different ways to capture this instruction so that families can go back, but also a student who participated in it may want to go back.
Absolutely.
The other big question we get is privacy.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I am really not comfortable with having the way my child is discussing or talking in a classroom videotaped. So talk a little bit about some of the ways we're trying to protect privacy and how parents can help us with that.
So absolutely. So the first thing is parents are going to give permission about whether or not their child can be recorded. So that's the first thing. We're not assuming we have permission. There will be a form that will be distributed. Schools will collect that. Any student who's in the Google Meet that does not have permission, or even that day chooses not to be recorded, can turn off their camera and their microphone during the section of the Google Meet that is recorded. And students will be able to see a recording button is going to pop up. Teachers are going to let students know, hey, I'm getting ready to start a recording. Please remember that if you don't have permission to turn off your camera and your microphone, even the teachers of our youngest kids will have a list. They'll know that certain students have to, and they'll just say, hey, go ahead and turn your camera and your video off. So that they'll have an alert that it's occurring. So that alone will keep students from appearing in recordings. The other thing that we do from a privacy perspective too is that we need to lock those videos down. So there's a 3-step process that teachers will use to store the videos in a way that they can be distributed to everybody in the class, but also then secure them so that once a student gets that video, they can't reshare or download that to some other place. So there will be training teachers in the coming week on how to secure and store and share those videos. And then there's a third layer of privacy, even for a student who has permission. We know that kids will often share things at school as part of a class discussion. So for instance, I could foresee that a middle school student maybe there's a conversation about bias. And a student might disclose that I felt like people have been biased for me because I'm diabetic or because I'm of a particular religious background. Okay, so kids will share a lot of stuff. It's one of the great joys of being in a public school system is that kids can really engage as citizens, right? It might be that the teacher feels that that information that was shared was done in the privacy of the class, and they may actually make a decision that that's not going to be one that they share. I think we have to respect teacher judgment on this, And by the way, teachers make judgments about that kind of stuff all the time, year after year, whether we're in a pandemic or not. And so teachers will always have the kind of final to say to be able to stop a video and say, you know what, we're not going to share this one in the interest of kids. And then the teacher can work on other ways to get that information to students who weren't there. So there's a lot of different layers to this idea around student privacy, which we certainly want to respect. And I totally get it. Recording your kid is a big decision by a parent. And different parents are going to respond to that different ways. And we feel we have kind of a multi-layered approach that if I don't want my child to appear in a recording, they won't. We're going to turn off our camera and we're going to turn off our video.
And we've also talked about the fact that, as you shared, when students are sharing things, there are some lessons we are not going to record.
Yeah.
When we're talking about social emotional learning and the sessions that we have for that, we want students to be unencumbered. We want them to be able to talk about their feelings, to talk about the strategies that we're going through. And so we feel that taping those kinds of lessons could be a deterrent. And so we are going to be strategic in what lessons we are recording. And again, teachers need to be able to know appropriate or not. The other thing I think it's really important that our parents understand is we may have a 60-minute synchronous learning block, but there may only be 15 minutes of direct instruction that get recorded.
Correct.
And again, that will vary depending on the reason, the type of instruction, and if the teacher then is moving into working with small groups and things like that. So it will not be the same as participating in the entire synchronous lesson, but it will be part of it. There's also a couple of strategies teachers could use to minimize the number of student faces that would be appearing on the screen during the recording. You want to talk about some of those?
Yeah, so, first of all, it's in a Google Meet, a teacher can share their screen. So they may have a presentation up. When that presentation goes up, it takes up a large amount of space on the screen. And so I'm sure a lot of families have looked in on Google Meet sessions and they can see that there are rows of kids that are available for the teacher and peers to view. And so when that screen pops up, it's going to crowd out the number of faces that are available there. So that's one way that we can minimize that. I think the community and I think our teachers and our school leaders and everybody has to understand that when we get into this for a week or two, we will learn things. I mean, it is absolutely important that we iterate, right? So if we learn that, hey, this approach or strategy over here is an even better way to secure privacy or an even better way to communicate the instruction to kids who weren't present, we're going to make sure that that's shared across the district. So I think people have to be patient and provide feedback. Are there going to be bumps? Yeah, probably so, I would imagine. And not only in just recording of Google Meets, but in many things that we do. But what I know about our teachers and our leaders in the schools is they're going to learn from that and we're going to make improvements.
And the feedback that we have received. We learned a lot from the spring. We heard from students, we heard from teachers, we heard from families. And the same will be true here. We will be reaching out to hear how it's going and look at the things we can improve. So that's why we feel recording lessons are important. It's an important customer service to our families because we recognize the virtual model has created a lot of new scenarios that families have had to navigate, just like teaching virtually is a new scenario that our teachers are navigating.
Absolutely.
And so this first week, we're not recording anything.
Correct.
We're just trying to learn how to navigate the technology, and we're getting those permissions. And so it will be in subsequent weeks where these lessons will be made available. And as always, the best point of contact is your child's teacher.
Absolutely.
That's the person who will be able to answer the questions that apply directly to you. Dr. Cuppet, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.
And hopefully, parents, families, care providers, you will be seeing these videos coming your way so that you can support your child anytime, anywhere. That's one of the beautiful things about the virtual model. Thank you very much for joining us today.